I Hate the News is the weekly news bulletin from I Hate Politics podcast, a show about a human activity we love to hate. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. It's December 16th, 2025. Governor Moore has called a special legislative session so a new speaker can be installed in the Maryland House of Delegates. And now the General Assembly has to consider overrides to his vetoes, of which there are many, but not redistricting the state's congressional seats, which he has really wanted. The UMBC Maryland Issues Poll is out just in time and has a clear message. Montgomery County recently touted an affordable housing project in Silver Spring, 98 units that cost $55 million. That's $550,000 for mostly one-bedroom units. Renters will pay subsidized rent, but at that cost, might as well have built three-bedroom townhomes. The county tries to build sidewalks in the Tacoma-Langley area, but residents are objecting, reviving an old trope, stranger danger, and more. Stay with us.
I Hate Politics is brought to you by UMBC's Political Science Program, where you'll learn to shape public policy, impact communities, and function at the center of modern society. Learn more at shadygrove.umbc.edu.
You're still on to me when I'm alone, and then I start to feel it creeping up inside. I told myself that this was the last time. I think I'm losing my mind.
I Hate Politics is a podcast about our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools and streets, and our local governments as they function in diverse and democratic societies. This means our politics are messy, dirty, sometimes corrupt, with often self-serving politicians. But no matter how much we may hate politics, we are never exempt from it, even when we refuse to participate. In fact, the purpose of politics is to keep society functioning precisely when we don't agree with each other, like now. Music for this episode comes from Montgomery County native and now DC-based singer-songwriter Kara Levchenko's two new single releases, Animal and Cosmic Love. You can find her and her music at karalevchenko.com. Big state news. Governor Moore has called a special session of the legislature so a new speaker can be installed in the Maryland House of Delegates. Jocelyn Pena-Melnick from Prince George's County has emerged as the consensus candidate. But even as she steps in, others are going to step away. Vanessa Atterbury, the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, which holds the education and gaming portfolios, apart from taxation, is resigning to focus on her run for Howard County Executive. There are likely going to be other committee changes. The next few weeks before the General Assembly session starts, January 14th, 2026, is going to be intriguing as members, lobbyists, and officials try to figure out how the new speaker will change Annapolis. By law, the General Assembly has to consider overrides to Governor Moore's vetoes from the last session. Top on the list are the Renew Act, which creates a study to see how to tax fossil fuel companies for environmental damage, the Data Center Study, and the most emotive of all, the Reparation Study. We know that the special session will not consider what the governor really wants, redistricting Maryland's congressional seats. If Maryland leaders are looking for signs, UMBC's State Issues Poll released this morning, Malia Cromer is a political science professor at UMBC and the poll's director.
We put our second poll of the fall semester in the field from December the 2nd to the 6th, about a week or so ago. The big takeaway is the most important issue facing the state. The big bucket, the 25% bucket, people said something about the economy, jobs, cost of living. Heard that over and over and over again when you're reading the responses. The second bucket, the 23%ers, taxes, budget, and government spending. They said those were the biggest issues facing the state. And then I think the most colorful of the responses fell into the government, leadership, politics, and democracy bucket. So 15% of folks said something about those issues. And typically it was something about not liking either the federal leadership or the state leadership, or having some sort of complaint about politics today, or saying something about sort of their real fears about the state of American democracy.
So democracy lower than cost of living. Is that different from the past?
Well, listen, I've been doing this for many years in Maryland, even before my time here at UMBC. Economic issues typically do rise very consistently to the top. Typically, though, what you'll see is like in second place, you usually see education pop up there as something that people that offer is a big issue facing the state. You don't see that on this poll. It doesn't pop up to the top like I've seen it before in the past.
Do you have a sense from the poll who people blame for this situation with the cost of living?
My guess is Republicans in the state are going to blame Governor Moore, the Democratic legislature. And on the other side, Democrats in the state are going to be looking to the federal government, blaming Congress, blaming President Trump.
Now, in terms of the issues, I see healthcare costs as very important.
It's not just about the actual healthcare that you're receiving, whether the quality is sort of good or bad, or whether you're getting fixed or cured, or, all of those things are very, very important. But the cost of healthcare, it is an economic issue and people feel it.
What else?
Energy bills. I always say like the issues right in front of people are the issues that people care about the most.
Housing. The governor has said that housing is one of his top issues, but people are worried about housing costs.
Yeah, every time I get a chance, I give the housing advocates, the folks who have really taken this issue of like building more housing, I give them a lot of credit. They have made it an issue that everybody is talking about. Like this is a national issue now.
Yeah. Do you want to say to housing advocates, be careful what you wish for? What did you find out about the governor's plan to want to redistrict?
No, people do not think it is as high as a priority anywhere close to what they think about the cost of healthcare, education, crime and public safety. So I put that on the battery. So, again, that list of issues, that these perennial issues, and I added in redrawing congressional district lines, like whether Marylanders thought that was a low, high, or medium priority. And only 27% of Marylanders say that's a high priority for them, that they would like to see the legislature address in the upcoming year.
Malia Cromer, thank you. I hope you'll be back with your part 2 and part 3 in a week or so.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.
Besides the UMBC poll, there are other signs from the Maryland Board of Revenue Estimates that are somewhat less pessimistic than the recent projection that the state faces a $1.4 billion deficit in fiscal year 2027. Against the big negative numbers from that previous projection, the Board of Revenue Estimates Executive Director Robert Rehrman had this to say last week.
For fiscal 26, the proposed revision is $26.8 billion. That's an increase of $90.7 million over the prior estimate. And that's estimated growth of 4.1% compared to the prior year. Turning to fiscal 27, our proposed estimate is $27.2 billion. That's an increase of only $9.1 million over the prior estimate and growth of 1.4%. How we stand year to date in our revenues through October relative to the September estimate. In total, we are $75 million over the estimate approximately. We have some timing issues going on, so that underestimates our revenue strength modestly. So in other words, we're a little bit stronger than that top line shows. On the plus side, we modestly increase our personal income tax forecast. About half of that is due to a modest increase in our capital gains forecast. U.S. equities continue to do well in the year. The remaining half is due to a technical change. We use new data when we go from the September to December forecast. Conversely, we're making a modest reduction to our sales tax forecast, and we are also reducing our corporate income tax forecast. Recognizing strength in those other revenue sources that we have in the door, the largest of which is the estate tax. We have several large estate tax payments above our estimate. The second largest adjustment is in interest income. We're increasing that forecast by $45 million. Now, most of our revenue sources have been resilient, as I mentioned, despite the uncertainty from the federal government and economic uncertainty. And as always, highlight withholding and sales tax. Those are our two most powerful economic indicators. Looking at our growth year to date in withholding, it has slowed from last year, but last year was exceptionally strong. And we're still above our benchmark growth rate of 4%. The sales tax, we do not see a concerning deterioration in spending, and also lottery showing the same picture. Sales are keeping up. They're not slowing. Even though our total spend is holding up, we do see some weakness in certain categories. And our brick and mortar casinos is one source of that weakness. We do have a decline in revenues there. And in addition, for the sales tax, even though our top line number is good, we're seeing some weakness in consumer spending in certain areas. Throughout this year, when I've presented revenue updates, the biggest reaction I get is, how is our withholding holding up in the face of these federal government reductions, and given how interconnected we are with the federal government? So what we did is, first we looked at our withholding collections, not including federal contractors or federal employees. This is mostly the private sector, but it includes state and local employment as well. And so far, we have not seen a deterioration in that growth. So contagion, if you will, has not spread to the private sector. This is different than prior reductions in federal spending. When that happened, we had a slowing in our private sector, and we have not seen that yet. We do expect that to slow next year. There's strength in the private sector, and year to date, we're growing at 4.5%, and we had an acceleration in the third quarter to about 5%. Our second reason why we don't see a concerning drop in our withholding is related to direct federal employees, what is being remitted from the federal government. So despite this reduction, total employment, we're not seeing a reduction in our tax collections. In the year to date of our total growth, the federal government is actually pushing up our growth rate by about 0.5%. Now, that's probably due to the deferred resignation program, those individuals being paid through September 30th. And that's something, again, next year we can't count on.
The repeated conflicts in revenue trends and projections is really puzzling. And while everyone wants to be conservative in their projections and expectation setting, a budget season of doom and gloom is not necessarily the right one. We will see how many elected officials pick up on this. I want to begin this next segment by correcting the Apple ballot item from last week and note an error of omission on my part. In reporting who was and who wasn't chosen for the Apple ballot, I missed highlighting that MCEA, the teachers union, had snubbed current school board member Carla Silvestri, who is running for county council at large. Another notable candidate left behind for county council at large is Scott Goldberg. Instead, MCEA is recommending current Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich, who is term limited and is planning to return to the council, incumbent Lori Ann Sales, and Josie Caballero and Fatimata Barry. In other MCPS news, last week, Superintendent Taylor reversed course to announce that Silver Spring International Middle School would not be closed for now. He had proposed reassigning students from that school to two neighboring ones, while rebuilding it as a holding school for others going through building renovation. A community outcry forced his hands. In an email to families, he wrote, "The board voted to direct me to suspend the process for the recommended school closure of Silver Spring International Middle School. MCPS and the Board of Education have been commonly criticized as being unresponsive to public opinion. Based on what happened to Silver Spring International Middle School, this criticism is wrong. MCPS is in fact quite responsive, but only if public opinion presents itself in a way that it is designed to accept it. That is not as claims to superior ideas, op-eds, and arguments. These may be a necessary first step, but the next one is critical: organizing. You have to be willing to say and do things to activate and energize your network. Show up en masse 2 board meetings wearing the same protest t-shirt, and then grab as many speaking slots as you can. In short, you have to act politically, display power, and keep your coalition intact. If you don't organize and you hate politics so much that you would rather not act politically, or feel that you somehow stand above politics, you are not going to persuade MCPS or the BOE. Ask up-county residents why they have been ignored by the county government for decades. As MCPS enrollments decline, expect more, much more of school closure politics to rise. Quite apart from the case of Silver Spring International, the contested organizing between the Wooten High School community and the Crown and Gaithersburg communities is also a remarkable lesson for those who think that they stand above or education stands above politics. If you want a deeper dive, check out last week's I Hate Politics episodes. There are exceptions to this rule. IEPs, 504s, employee and union matters are addressed differently because they are regular venues of friction. MCPS has over the years developed standard operating procedures for these issues. Typically, special education issues are pushed toward judicial determination, and employee complaints are channeled through the union. Reach out if you have thoughts or want to see I Hate Politics dive into these issues. Recently, Montgomery County government officials have touted the opening of a new all-affordable housing apartment block called Bracken Square in Silver Spring. The project built 98 apartments, all of which are going to be rented below market rates at different levels of affordability. But what is startling is the cost of the building itself. Eric Saul is an architect in Montgomery County.
There's this new building that just opened in downtown Silver Spring. So it's an affordable housing development at 715 Sligo Avenue. You know, everybody's been posting articles on social media about this, how great, politicians are doing ribbon cuttings. I saw that it was $55 million to build 98 units. So I just whipped out a calculator, and that came to $560,000 per unit for mainly 1-bedroom apartments, you know, maybe a smaller percentage of 2 bedrooms and an even smaller percentage of 3 bedrooms, $560,000 for a 575 square foot 1-bedroom apartment on average. I'm designing bespoke ADUs with nice kitchens and siding and a lot nicer details and finishes, larger in size, 600 to 700 square feet. We're doing that for almost half the cost. You know, $300K. So when I heard $560 for a 1-bedroom apartment, that's kind of low income housing. And yeah, they put in some granite countertops, things like that. But I can guarantee you that the finishes are not going to be as nice as some of the stuff I'm doing. At $560K, $260,000, almost double the price of an ADU. It just, I know things cost more, and I'm not saying like we shouldn't be doing this. Obviously, I'm a huge advocate of low income housing. But I'm worried about this cost, and I'm worried about how sustainable that is. It's easy to assume that there's probably at least $100,000 per unit of government subsidies going into this, right? 20%. I'm sure it's more. But if you take $100,000 per unit, we have a 30,000 unit housing shortage here. That's $3 billion to solve our housing crisis here. How do we do that? We don't have $3 billion. We have maybe $100 million. In an account somewhere in Montgomery County's fund.
What do you think the difference in price comes from?
This project in particular took 10 years to develop, right? And when I'm doing a house, it's like 3 months. It's almost no time. There's no holding cost, interest, all that stuff gets calculated into that, construction cost too. I'm sure the parking garage was millions of dollars to build.
That doesn't include land costs.
But even if you add $100,000 of land costs, still cheaper than one of these units. And just to add to that, townhouses, right? Just a developer putting in, I don't know, let's say 60 townhouses on a site. The average cost of those townhouses are around $500 to $600K each. We're talking a building that's 3 or 4 times larger than one of these apartments with bigger land. So the land cost is more per unit. There's likely a garage in it, right? I mean, obviously a wood frame garage is cheaper than a concrete underground garage, but still there's 2,000 or 3,000 square feet per building at the same price of 600 square feet per building. That doesn't make sense. We're doing something wrong as a society when it costs this much amount of money per unit. I do believe we can get this price lower. And I don't know what that is. Reducing parking minimums, obviously making it quicker to get things done. Obviously it's a huge problem how long it takes. This building should not be 10 years to.
Yeah. Your delegate, Lori Cherkudian, is quoted as saying that it took 8 to 10 years of behind the scenes work. I'm like, that's not a flex,
Yeah, it's a compliment to how hard you worked, but it's not a compliment to the system. We have a housing crisis that is just growing at a faster pace than we're building. And this is the kind of money it costs per unit. We're never going to get there. And we should be asking questions. We should be finding out not only why is it costing more, but what can we do to lower it? And maybe there's an alternative that we should be putting our money into. It seems like all we do is only fund affordable housing in this typology. Why don't we give $100,000 to someone to build an ADU in their backyard with the stipulation, with the idea that they would have someone and have rent no higher than a certain number? Can you imagine going to a city like Tacoma Park with like 18,000 people and saying, hey, there's $100,000 for you if you build an apartment in your backyard and you just can't charge more than $1,600 a month in rent? I believe we would be building more than 98 of these in a 10-year period.
It's not only a $9.5 million loan from the Housing Initiative Fund, but also there's payment in lieu of taxes. And then there is a $24 million LIHTC. So really, out of the $55 million, $34 million comes from government sources. At 50%, 60% from government money, you're not going to be able to scale up. You certainly can reach the 30,000 and you're stuck with 98 and 200 and 32. And
And people want two things to happen, right? They want the government to create public housing, which a lot of subsidies to do that. And they don't want developers to make any money doing any of this. And so, that's a huge problem.
But you could do it, just raise taxes.
Right. And nobody wants that either.
Eric Saul, thank you.
You're welcome.
Worth noting that affordable housing projects across the country cost almost double market rate build cost. A story on the Business News website, BizNow, says this. Because LIHTC only covers part of a project's cost, developers must combine multiple funding sources, each with additional rules and fees, leading to higher soft costs like legal, financing, and consulting fees that can exceed 25% of the budget. Developers are also required to meet stricter environmental and labor standards than market rate projects, while developer fees calculated as a percentage of total costs create incentives for developers to keep budgets higher. While this may very well be true, it is my understanding that capital stacks for private projects are often similarly aggregated. There are always multiple sources of capital that have to be put together. If LIHTC costs 25% in consulting and legal fees, something really needs to be fixed. Because the data is proprietary, it is also difficult to distinguish between capital stacking costs and risk and margin premiums. Stranger danger was a 1970s term that led a lot of Generation X and millennials to be wary of people they did not know, arguably with deep impact on our collective psyche and social capital. Turns out most kids are kidnapped by people they know, not by complete strangers. In a legacy of that weird time, recent efforts in Montgomery County to build new sidewalks close to Purple Line stations in the Tacoma Park, Langley Park area saw pushback. Few people are more attuned to the idiosyncrasies of our lives than Dan Reed, the founder of the Just Up the Pike blog, and now the Maryland Policy Director of Greater Washington, the DC-based urbanist organization.
There was an effort from the Montgomery County Department of Transportation to build sidewalks in, I think, 7 or 8 streets around a soon-to-open Purple Line station in Tacoma Park. And they surveyed residents as to whether they supported or opposed it, which is a pretty common practice that they do. And of about 150 residents, half responded. And of those half, most of them opposed the sidewalks. And among the reasons they gave for opposing them was this concept of stranger danger. Stranger danger dates to the mid 20th century. There were a lot of high profile child abductions around the country. Folks in Maryland may remember, I think, the Lyon sisters in Wheaton who disappeared after a trip to Wheaton Plaza. And there was a lot of effort in culture, in government, in teaching to scare children into not talking to unfamiliar adults as a way to prevent these abductions from occurring. We have later found that concept is discredited. Most children are kidnapped by someone they know, and teaching children the concept of stranger danger is counterproductive for when someone is actually in trouble and an adult who wants to help them cannot, because they are perceived as unfamiliar and therefore scary. Emergency services, for example. Ultimately, the reason that NCDOT gave for canceling the sidewalks was they didn't have funding. But this is a broader issue with the agency in which any transportation project, no matter how large or how small, has to go through multiple rounds of public input. The fact that we survey specifically homeowners in a neighborhood where sidewalks are being proposed discounts the perspective of anyone who might use those sidewalks who doesn't live there, anyone who just doesn't bother to fill a survey they receive from the local government, which may not be readily apparent to them what it's about. In a county where they have taken the Vision Zero pledge, pledging to end traffic fatalities by 2030, we know the tools that can help keep people safe, whether it's sidewalks or speed bumps or crosswalks or stop signs or any kind of traffic calming or traffic control. Probably should not be put to a vote, because we are essentially saying that the perspective of someone who does not want this change in their community is more important than keeping people safe.
The democratic theory part of this is going to say, but who's to decide that, right? Is there some objective measure?
I'll give you examples. So in my neighborhood of East Silver Spring, we have had 2 crashes this year, one where a driver hit my dog and I, and another where a driver hit an 11-year-old student. At each of these locations, our neighborhood association is organizing to get some kind of change, stop signs, a speed bump. Last year, the county executive introduced this new order for how to make decisions about speed bumps. And it does include extensive community input, but the universe of people that it says are needed to be surveyed. Blocks where people would have no choice but to drive on the block where the speed bumps are. And on those blocks, it's people who have property frontage on it. So if you live in a single family house, you get a vote for or against speed bumps. If you live in an apartment building on that street, that entire apartment building gets 1 vote, no matter how many people live in it. 70% of this universe of people they define has to agree to installing speed bumps. And you can see how that weighs certain views over each other just within the same block.
Why is there a need for a supermajority? And normally these things, it's a majority, right? Why? What's the supermajority idea?
In conversations our neighborhood has had with DOT, they have, I think, argued that in the past there was pushback or resistance to speed bumps.
Connecting our 2 conversations about stranger danger and public input, it seems the more stranger danger you have, the more difficult it is to organize public input in a structured way to get government to do what you want them to do. It's kind of ironic.
Absolutely. The perils of being in a low trust society.
Dan Reed, thank you.
Glad to be here.
I don't care if silence playing games today, that it ain't fair.
That's all for this episode. Be sure to check out our feature interview series that comes out Friday mornings. I Hate Politics is produced by me, Sunil Dasgupta, with support from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I direct UMBC's political science program at the universities of Shady Grove in Montgomery County, where, among other things, we explore and learn about politics, government, and society close to home. Music for this episode comes from Montgomery County native and now DC-based singer-songwriter Kara Levchenko's two new single releases, Animal and Cosmic Love. You can find her and her music at karalevchenko.com. If you want to share your music on the show or know someone else who might want to, please email us at producer@ihppod.org. I hope you will subscribe and share the podcast as we bring you stories about politics close to you and to your home. See you next time.
Can't read the signs, it feels like perfect timing. This love is shining. Pardon me, it feels like we can use a little TLC. Start over and heal everything. We believe